Okay, so this is going to be part one for opening and editing downloaded missions from the Steam Workshop, specifically KP Liberation, and editing that mission. So let's begin. The first thing you're going to want to do is download a couple of tools. There's two tools that you need. The first one is Sublime Text 3. This is just a text editor that I use. I prefer it. It has the syntax highlighting, or at least you can get it for it. If you want to use another editor, just make sure you get the SQF syntax highlighting. So I'm going to go to Google. I'm going to type in Sublime Text 3. I'm going to click whatever links that I need to download. I want 3.0. That's what I use. I don't know about 3.2. I use 3.0. Once that's downloaded, I'm going to fire it up, and I've got it right here. I'm going to hold Control Shift and P, and I'm going to type in package. So what you guys are looking for, actually I'm going to type in package control so that it reduces the list a little bit more. So package control, and what you guys are looking for is install package. You're going to use your arrow keys to navigate down here. I'm going to go to list packages because I already have it installed. This will just show you what you're looking for. I'm going to type in SQF, and it should be pretty much the only thing in the list. You're looking for SQF language. It's going to have a little description of what it is. You see for Bohemia Interactive's SQF language, that's Arma 3. You guys are going to hit enter and follow whatever prompts it asks you for, and it's going to install the package for you automatically. In order for it to be active, though, you need to close and reopen Sublime Text. I'm not going to reopen it because we don't need it for now. If that was a little too fast for you, you can go to Google and Google Arma 3 SQF syntax Sublime Text 3. There's a GitHub John Bond Sublime SQF language. You can click on that, and he's got the same instructions that I just gave you down at the bottom, or you can manually download his repository and extract it to wherever he tells you to and install it that way. The next tool that you need is PBO Manager. You're going to go to Google and type in PBO Manager. Hopefully Armaholic's the first thing that you see. I use Armaholic because they're pretty well trusted. I'm going to click that link. It should be 1.4 beta. Scroll down to the bottom, click to download PBO Manager. So install that, extract it, do whatever it wants you to do, and then remember where you installed it, because when we open the files from Steam, the .pbo files, we're going to need to know where the executable is. And that's it. Okay, so the next thing you're going to need to do in order to edit the mission is to get the mission. So there's two ways to do that. You can either go to the KP Liberation GitHub. I'm just going to Google KP Liberation. It should probably be the top result at github.com. I'm going to open it up. There's basically this huge repository. It can be kind of confusing. Like, what do I do here? What you want to do here is, let's see, I think I just want to hit clone and download, and this is going to have everything that I need. This is a little bit less straightforward than doing it from Steam. I'm not really going to go into this in depth, although if you know what you're doing here, it can be faster than finding your Steam files, because Steam likes to throw stuff in directories, and who gives a shit what it's called? Steam knows, but you don't. That's the great thing about Steam. So you can get it from their GitHub repository, or you can go onto the Steam browser, go to Workshop Items, search for KP Liberation. It's going to be one of the top results. You're going to want to select one that's made by this guy, WYQER. Those are the official releases. So download whatever one you're interested in. I'm going to use Serani for this example. So I'm already subscribed to Serani. That means that Steam has downloaded it somewhere. I have no idea where it is on my computer. But thankfully, I did some Google searching and I found it. on my machine where it decided to put the map is on this drive, program files x86, Steam, user data, some number. I don't know if this is the same number for everybody. I think this might be a game reference number, 42022417, whatever, /UGC/referenced. And then they're numbered because why the fuck would you name something, Steam? Why? So this is the Serrani one. I've already verified that by going in here. Here it is, the Serrani Liberation map. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to right click and I'm going to hit rename, and I'm just going to copy this, Control C. And now I have PBO Manager installed and I've already been using it. So I have the little PBO Manager icon attached to anything that's a .pbo. Here you can see that this is a .pbo file. So I'm going to double click that. My system already knows to use PBO Manager automatically. You're going to have to point it to where you installed PBO Manager, and there's no harm in checking use this program every time because there's nothing else that you want to open a PBO with, really. It's pretty much just another zip file. It's their own compression algorithm or something like that. So I've got PBO Manager open. I'm going to maximize this this little window here. Move these over so I can kind of be working in both of them at the same time. I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to name it the same thing as the KP Liberation. Now, in the PBO Manager, I'm going to select the top item in the list. I'm going to hold Shift. I'm going to click all the way down. I'm going to push Control C on my keyboard. You may get a loading bar. I'm going to open the Serrani folder that I just created, and I'm going to paste everything in there. You also may get some screen pop up saying something about it's not official anymore or whatever, it's unsigned. It doesn't matter. You're obviously creating your own version of KP Liberation Serrani. Don't re-upload these to the workshop as if they were an original work. Always, if you're going to upload this to the workshop, that's fine, but give credit to the author and stipulate that this is some kind of fork. You did X, Y, or Z. But for the most part, for us, we're not going to be doing any of that or dealing with that, so I'm not going to really go into that. So now I have unpacked the mission into a folder, and I will now close the PBO. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to cut this. Cut. And now I'm going to go to my MP missions folder. I have this in my quick access because I go to it all the time. For me, it's under Documents, Arma 3 Other Profiles, my profile name, MP Missions. For you, it may be different. You should probably know where that is by now. I'm just going to paste it in here now. And there she is. So let's start working in here. Okay, so we're in the editor now, and we have opened the mission that we've copied to our MP missions folder. This is what the other side of the curtain looks like for KP Liberation. Let's see, we have our start base here. We're in the ocean. We can change this if we want to later. I'll go into that later in the vid. But specifically, we're interested in, like fully manipulating this scenario, putting it on different terrains, etc. So I'm going to go into that right now. The first thing that you want to do is you want to create a mission on that new terrain. And name it something similar to KP Liberation space, the terrain name, and then save it. So you have just basically an empty terrain with nothing on it. And then you can go between this file and that file, making sure that settings are correct. The map settings that you want to transfer over are going to be under Attributes General. I would just suggest copying and pasting this stuff and then just making sure all these boxes are ticked the same. I'm using Eden Enhanced right now. Just want to reiterate that. So if you don't see some of these options, it's fine. I would always suggest using Eden Enhanced though, because it adds things that make mission editing easier, and I may be using those things. And you might be like, how did he do that? If you're wondering that, it's most likely Eden Enhanced. So get that mod, make sure you have that mod enabled when you're editing this stuff. It'll make life a lot easier. So attributes general, this is just a reference to the mission title, which is stored externally in another file that we can change. Obviously author credit, if you're putting this on a new scenario, put your name in there, don't put your name in there. I don't care what you do. It's not my problem. Make sure that the independent allegiance is set this way. This is important because initially you want independence to be neutral, and then the external files will manage the relations based on civilian casualties and stuff like that. So attributes general, and then attributes multiplayer. This number is most likely going to change, max number of players. That's going to be what the actual lobby size ends up being, which for us, don't quote me on this, I'm going to count it later. I think it's 64. Can't be 64, that's too nice of a number. So it's 60 something. So that's going to change. But like I said, copy these settings over. Game type CTI, uncheck the enable AI, uncheck auto assign slots, copy this thing over. Respawn, custom position, respawn delay, all this stuff, copy it over, make sure revive mode is disabled, and then hit OK. So you want those settings set up in your in the scenario you're going to send this all to. I'm going to say that, yeah, I did that. Cool. Everything's done. I'm going to collapse all this stuff. I'm going to select from blue 4 all the way down to here. Actually, I'm going to open up this guy on the bottom. So I'm going to select from blue 4 all the way down to here. And is that getting everybody? It's not getting everybody. Okay, so don't collapse it. Leave it expanded. That's lame. I'm going to select from blue 4, and I'm going to drag the slider all the way down. I'm going to hold shift. I'm going to click on the bottommost thing. So I have literally everything selected in this mission. I'm going to hit Control C. This is kind of a brute force thing. Control C. And then I'm going to go ahead and open that other terrain. So let's just pretend that I'm opening that other terrain. I don't really care about that. It's just saying it can't find some texture. I'm going to close that. Okay, I'm going to open my map. I'm going to turn off vertical mode, and I'm going to turn off surface snapping. If I leave those on, there's going to be a bunch of things that end up coming in that are at different heights, and I don't even want to deal with any of that. So I'm just going to turn those off for now. I'm going to be somewhere like in the middle of the map, I guess, and I'm going to hold Control and hit V, and that pasted everything in. You can see that looks like Serrani's a little bit bigger of a map. No big deal. It may be better for you to start with a smaller map rather than Serrani and go onto a larger map. So maybe download the Malden scenario instead of the Serrani scenario, but I'll leave that up to you, however you want to do that. So looks like there's a lot going on here. I'm not going to go too deeply into this right now. I'm just going to start brute forcing my way toward having the scenario set up the way that I want it set up. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take the player starting base. I'm staying on the map for this, and the reason why I'm staying on the map for this is because there are markers that are associated with particular events, like spawns, where stuff spawns at mostly. and I want to make sure that I select those. If I'm in the 3D mode, if I turn my map off, I can't see a lot of those markers, and my selection my selection box won't select them. So I'm going to stay in the map screen. I'm going to select the carrier group, and I'm just going to drag it onto the map, just somewhere, obviously on water, guys. Okay, so somewhere on water, and then I'm going to, with it all selected, I'm going to hit F. And if I push Q, it'll bring me up into the air. And all of this stuff has come in at a relative height. Maps, different terrains have different sea levels. And so if you paste stuff from one map to another, stuff will either be in the air or it'll be under the water. So I left basically it all in some relative positioning, so a lot of stuff is going to be floating. That's fine because I'm going to delete almost everything off of this. Really what I was interested in was this carrier stuff and where the units are stored on the map. So I'm going to drag this guy down to, like, you know, where it would look like it was. I'm holding Alt and holding left click and dragging stuff up and down. These guys are where your boats spawn, your little like infill watercraft. I'm gonna leave those a little bit above the water, and the reason for that is because, yeah, when stuff spawns in Arma, if there's any clipping at all, Arma's solution is to blow shit up. And I don't want any of that to happen. So I'm going to leave those guys a little bit above the water, and that's great. And then the way that this guy set this up is these were all snapped to the deck of the carrier, and that's fine. But I'm going to open each one of these, and I'm going to go, okay, you're at 69.5, let's go to 69.6. And that's just going to put it just a little bit above wherever that snap point was. So when the vehicle actually spawns in the game, or the player in this case, that's the start base marker, that's where the player will spawn. So when the Huron spawns, it'll be just like a very marginal amount above the deck. And then when somebody gets it in it, the simulation will enable and it will drop that small amount, which will not damage it because there's not enough, you know, airtime for it to build up some speed and do something catastrophic. So I'm just making sure that I go to each one of these and just round it off to the next highest decimal place. So that looks good. So that's done for the starting spawn. I'm going to save this now, just because I hate it when stuff crashes, and it happens to me all the time. So let's see. I'm just going to go down here. I'm going to steal this guy's name, and I'm going to say Duala, because that is the terrain that I'm on. Okay, cool. So start base is done. I'm going to open my map. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all this stuff. This is where the game temporarily does some interesting stuff, the way that these guys have set it up, and we'll go into that. But this is essential, highly essential, that you take all of this stuff, which is essentially your lobby configuration, some of your headless client stuff, and a game logic that controls a lot of stuff. You're going to want this stuff to be on some pretty much insignificant area, an area in the map where you expect nobody to ever go or use for any kind of strategic importance. So just looking around the map right now, I'm looking for an area like that. This is a little close to some towns here, and even this guy is a little close to some towns. So, you know, I'm almost saying I want to put it right here. Although, you know, it kind of looks like there's not really a good spot for this guy. So for this tutorial, I'm gonna leave it here. Just for the sake of argument, I'm gonna say nobody's ever gonna do anything here. Although if I were a player, I would probably drop some artillery here and bomb the shit out of all this stuff. But I'm gonna act like that's never gonna happen. Come over to all this stuff. I'm gonna select it all. Actually, I'm gonna be on the map to select it all because I always want this marker. This marker will not be selected in the 3D view. So I'm just going to grab all this stuff and, oh, I have my camera grabbed. Okay. If you're ever grabbing stuff and you're wondering why you're warping around like crazy, it's because on the map you also grabbed your camera. So let's see. I'm going to drag my camera away a little bit and I'm going to reselect this stuff. Close the map. Go over to where it is and I'm just going to snap it. Now I'm going to turn on snapping in vertical mode. And I'm going to hold Alt and drag down. And all these guys are now on the ground. So this will, essentially what's happening here is you spawn in here, and then before you actually like load into the player, it teleports you via this trigger to the carrier. There's better ways to do it now in Arma, but back when they were making this scenario, that was how you had to do it. Okay, so I'm going to save this. Like I said, all this stuff is like super important to have. So don't delete any of this stuff, except for you can delete all these guys. So I want my, I want my lobby. I want my 56RD lobby. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and collapse all this stuff. Open up the blue 4. Expand it just so that I get everybody. And I'm going to open up the officer, which has the variable name Commandant. I'm going to copy that. And then I'm going to select all my dudes and I'm going to delete them all. Make sure when you're deleting stuff that you're not accidentally hovering over something, because the editor will, if I have these objects selected and I'm also hovered over this trigger and I push the delete key, it will delete that trigger first. And then if I push the delete key again, it will delete all these objects. So make sure you're not hovering over something when you hit the delete key. You always want to have nothing contextually highlighted under the cursor. So I've deleted all my dudes. I have a composition that has all of the guys that I want. It's going to be this fob that I get from the mill standard or whatever. And I'm going to slap this down somewhere else just because like there's only a couple things that I want. So I'm going to end up deleting a bunch of other stuff from it. Okay, so essentially, let's see. I want one of these supply boxes because I'm going to put it on the carrier. And then I don't want any of this stuff. I don't want this hide terrain or these protection zones. I'm going to get rid of this vehicle respawn. The scenario already comes with headless client management, so I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to leave the MCC access rights. I'm going to remove this. I'm going to remove this. No, actually, I'm going to leave this HUD setting. It's important. I'm going to remove this Game Master and the Zeus logic. And let's see, I'm going to leave this diary record because this is our signal plan. I'm going to leave these HUD settings in here. And I'm going to leave this access rights, which locks it down to only admin can access the MCC console. So this is all the stuff that I want. This is now how the lobby is going to look. I'm going to drag these dudes over into this special area with all of this special stuff. And it really doesn't matter exactly where they are in this area. This is the area trigger that is going to detect the players and then teleport them. So it's just so long as they're within this smaller trigger area, I believe. So I'm going to save that. So now I have all of my dudes in the proper configuration that I want them. I'm going to make sure that they're not clipping into any geometry so that if somebody picks a slot that spawns in a tree, they don't die every time, or something awful doesn't happen because of Arma. And then I'm going to go to the commander slot, and I'm going to give him the variable name Commandant. I'm just going to paste that in, and I'm going to save. And now, basically, I mean, technically, you're done, and you could technically play this. It would work, except we need to copy the external files over, and there's a lot of stuff that would spawn, off the map and underwater, and we don't want to deal with any of that. So that's the initial setup, and we'll move on to modifying and placing objectives.